Here are optimal settings that you should be using to have a better experience in Valorant. Let's start by talking about everyone's favorite topic, sensitivity. Now I know finding your optimal sensitivity isn't easy, and it takes a little bit of trial and error to figure out. So before I talk about how you can find your ideal sensitivity, let's talk about sensitivity in general. Should you use high sense or low sense? Well, people debate this a lot. A high sense allows you to be faster at aiming, but less precise, and on the other hand, a low sense is good for being more precise, but you're not as fast. In my opinion, keeping a sense in between an eDPI, which is your mouse DPI multiplied by your in-game sense, of around 200 to 300 is best. However, that doesn't mean you can't go higher or lower. At the end of the day, sense is about personal preference and practice. What works for you won't necessarily work for others, and if something does work for you, stick with it. But from my experience and many others, any eDPI around 200 to 300 will be a comfortable sense to start with. If you decide to change your sensitivity or want to change your sensitivity, I suggest you gradually change your sense while consistently practicing in aim labs or deathmatch. I changed my sense from an eDPI of 980 to an eDPI of 257 by dropping my sense around 100 eDPI per week until I got to a sense I felt consistent with. Again, to help me switch, I practice aim labs and deathmatch almost daily, and I gradually found my optimal sense. You can do a cold turkey switch, but aiming in the short term will be harder and you may get demotivated. Now, one way to find your optimal sense is by using the PSA method calculator. Tens discussed this in his video, and it's a solid method to figure out your optimal sense. Go to Google and search up PSA method calculator and click the first site. Now, you need to enter your starting sensitivity. To find this, simply take the value of 280 and divide it by your current mouse DPI. The calculator will then give you a low sense to try and a high sense to try. Play one deathmatch on both senses and then select which sense felt more comfortable for you. Keep doing this until the calculator gives you your ideal sensitivity. I highly suggest you don't keep switching sensitivities and thinking you will find the best one. Most players don't have time to play much, and switching senses will mess up your muscle memory. Remember, a good sense boils down to your playstyle and a lot of practice. And before I move on to the best settings for Valorant, big thank you to the sponsor of this video, GOSU Academy. GOSU Academy provides you with professional coaching, including players who were actual pros. They offer multiple opportunities to improve your gameplay. This includes training methods, advanced theory lessons, and VOD reviews taught by some of the best in the industry. Even better, you get to play in weekly 10-man custom games guided by those same coaches, which is a nice change from the solo queue jungle. Plus, every month, GOSU Academy brings in coaches from franchise teams to give you exclusive lectures. So if you're determined to become a better Valorant player and want to be surrounded by like-minded gamers instead of many toxic ranked teammates, sign up with my link for a free 30-day trial. In just 30 days with GOSU Academy, you can make improvements to your game that could take you 6 months on your own. So why not try it out? It's an awesome deal, and I'd love to see you guys benefit from it. Now let's move on to the best in-game settings for Valorant, and I'm going to go in order of the settings screen. If you want to have a faster reaction time, then keep the highlight color red, since most people react to the color red faster than the other colors. If you want to spot the enemies more easily, then you should keep the highlight color yellow. Personally, I prefer yellow because it feels easier to aim at enemies on my screen. Now, if you are a Viper main, then using purple highlights can be useful for spotting enemies in your ultimate, as enemies will shine the brightest. Keep in mind that for whatever enemy highlight color you choose, you should have a contrasting crosshair color. Next, make sure raw input buffer is turned on. This will help players who are using mice with high polling rates and can help reduce input lag, which should give a more responsive experience. Also, make sure you have mouse acceleration turned off. Mouse acceleration causes your sensitivity to change as you swipe your mouse. To check that, go to your Windows search bar and type mouse settings. Open it up and then select additional mouse options. When the mouse properties window appears, click on the pointers option tab and make sure the enhanced pointer precision is turned off. Next, let's talk about minimap settings. This is very important. When I first started playing Valorant, I really didn't care about the minimap, and that's a huge mistake. If you want to get better awareness and decision making, you need to have these minimap settings. You can choose to have the map on rotate or fixed. I prefer rotate since I've been using that for a long time. However, you need to have keep player centered off. This will keep the map centered so you can see more. Also, make sure you have the minimap set at the maximum size and keep the zoom around 0.8. This will allow you to see the entire minimap during the game, which is crucial to understanding what is happening on the other side of the map. A lot of players will not communicate, so deciding when to rotate, knowing what utility is being used, or predicting where enemies could be is heavily based on looking at the minimap. Next, let's talk about first-person handness. In my opinion, this is simply based on personal preference. Whichever mode feels better to use is the model you should use. One way to determine what hand model you should use is called the triangle dominant eye test. This involves making a triangle with your hands and focusing on a distant object through the triangle to determine which eye aligns with the object. If you're right eye dominant, try using the left hand model, and if you are left eye dominant, try using the right hand model. Moving on, change show corpses to off. This will change it so that you won't see the bodies of players on the floor. Instead, you will see discs with the agent's icons on them. This reduces visual clutter, and if you play Sage, this can help you determine what bodies to revive more easily. Now, when it comes to turning blood on or off, it's mainly about personal preference. There may be certain situations where having blood on can show a splatter when you hit a wallbang, but from my experience, it doesn't matter too much. Personally, I like the way blood off looks, but this one's up to you. Next, show bullet tracers is not a common setting people people change, but it can help some people aim better from time to time. This will get rid of the bullet tracer animation when you shoot. Most people, including myself, like the tracers, so I prefer to keep this on. By the way, if you so far found any of these tips helpful and are interested in ranking up faster, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and go join my Discord. Let's get to 50,000 subs. Now let's move on to important controls that you should consider changing. I'll start with the aim down sight setting. Now, toggle or hold ADS is up to your personal preference, and when it comes to opping, it can be faster to scope in if you use hold, but if you play more methodically with the op, keeping it on toggle is fine. However, for both ways, you need to use toggle operator zoom and bind your toggle zoom button to a keybind of your choice. I prefer using the middle mouse button. Without this, when you zoom into your op, you are forced to double zoom before trying to unscope, and if you accidentally double zoom, you need to unscope before trying to single zoom in again. This is risky and can get you killed in some gunfights. By binding the toggle zoom level to a key, you can easily go back and forth between zoom levels and unscope at any time. I highly recommend this for opping. Next, change your equip spike button to a different bind than the plant spike button. For example, if your equip spike button is on 5, then change the plant spike button to 4. If you don't do this, then when you are on the bomb site and want to give your teammate the spike, your character will get stuck trying to plant. Also, make sure your interact button is not the same as your plant the spike button. This can also become a problem when you're on the bomb site if you want to pick up a weapon, but your character keeps trying to plant the spike instead. Now, one very important equipment setting is to select auto equip prioritize to strongest. This will automatically equip the strongest weapon in your inventory after your character does some action. This can be helpful for you in situations where you're trying to plant or defuse the spike. There are some situations where this can mess you up, but for the most part, this setting is very helpful. Also, make sure don't auto equip melee is checked on as well. Next, bind scroll wheel down to jump. It can feel weird for new players, but this can help you move around obstacles faster and you can be more consistent with jumps, otherwise known as bunny hopping. Next, for your push to talk, there are two methods you can try. The first is binding push to talk to mouse thumb button 2. This makes it really easy to press and allows you to give faster comms in gunfights. But the problem with this bind is that you will run into times where this will hurt your aim. I've had it happen to me many times. You can get stuck trying to give a comm while fighting, and pressing the push to talk button messes up your mouse grip, which can cause you to flick incorrectly. So another option is to bind push to talk to a button like V, which you can press with your thumb while playing. The only issue is that it is a little harder to give comms during gunfights, since it can feel a little awkward to press V for some people. Let's move on to crosshairs. Now, there are a lot of crosshairs you can decide to use, and they are mainly based on personal preference. If you want to find crosshairs that work for you, go to Google and search up Valorant Crosshair Database. Select the first site that opens. Using this site, you can find multiple crosshairs that pros use, crosshairs that you would like to try out, or crosshairs that can help you troll your 5-stack. Simply click on a crosshair you want to use, then click copy code. Go to your crosshairs tab and select import crosshair and paste the code. It's really simple and helpful. Now let's move on to video settings. If you want to get the best performance, select full screen display mode. But if you tab out of your game often, you should just use Windows full screen mode. Now, if your FPS is very inconsistent, I suggest you cap your FPS to a number your computer can usually output. This can prevent the screen from looking like it's tearing too often. And if you do have inconsistent frames, try disabling full screen optimizations. To do this, locate the drive where you installed Valorant. Go to your Riot Games folder, then go to your Valorant folder, and then open the Live folder. Go to the Valorant EXE application and right click on it. Press Properties and then go to the Compatibility tab. Check the Disable Full Screen Optimizations box, then press Apply and hit OK. Next, make sure your NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency is either turned on or on plus boost. This will help your in-game performance and give you better FPS. Moving on to graphics quality. If you have a low-end PC, I would recommend you turn everything to low. However, if you do have a mid-tier PC that can easily get around 144 FPS, I'd recommend you turn on multi-thread rendering, change anti-aliasing to MSAA4X, change anisotropic filtering to 8x or 16x, and keep bloom on. This will allow for better visual clarity and players won't seem as pixelated. And if you want your game to look slightly better, keep material quality low, texture quality medium, detail quality high, and UI quality low. Also, if you want your game to look more colorful and vibrant, then open up NVIDIA Control Panel. Go to Adjust Desktop Color Settings and increase your digital vibrance to around 75% or whatever looks nice for you. This will make the colors pop better and make the game more enjoyable to play. Moving on to stats. Most of these are up to personal preference, but if you are trying to improve your aim and movement, you should turn on the shooting error graph. This graph will tell you if you are moving while shooting. Orange lines mean you are fully accurate when shooting, and blue lines mean you are moving while shooting. This can help you determine if you are shooting before your character is standing still. You should use it to improve your strafes, which is fundamental to ranking up in Valorant. Now for audio, make sure you have Enable HRTF checked on. This makes it easier to identify sounds in game. It will give you better 3D audio so you are more aware of what direction sounds are coming from. Remember to go pick up a shirt or hoodie from my store to directly support me. They're really comfortable. I hope these settings will help your Valorant gaming experience, and I'll see you in the next one.